Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I think it's a good moment to talk about a film that came out recently in cinema, and that is 3,000 Years of Longing. I was immediately intrigued by this film the moment I learned that visionary Australian filmmaker George Miller was behind this project. This is actually his first film in 7 years, and the last being the immaculate Mad Max Fury Road, which is an absolute masterpiece in action cinema, without question one of the defining films of the decade. I rewatched it recently, and once again, I was absolutely floored. George Miller built his reputation as a filmmaker in the late 70s and in the 80s with the original Mad Max films, of course. But it was the continuation of his career that makes him an outlier among his peers. This guy has one of the biggest left turns in cinema history. After the 80s, he went on to make films like Lorenzo's Oil, a true story about parents who search for a cure for their son's ADL disease. Then he went on to make Babe and Babe Pig in the City, of which he wrote and produced both films, but only directed the sequel. You'd never think that the mind behind the post-apocalyptic world of Mad Max would be capable of pulling off such a film with that much success, but he did. Those Babe films are beloved by critics and viewers alike. And it gets even better. His next films were Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2, of which he actually won an Oscar for Best Animated Film for the first film. Evidently, George Miller is not averse to taking risks, and he continues that fate in with his latest feature film. 3,000 Years of Longing is a film about Dr. Alethea Binney, played by Tilda Swinton, who is a scholar on stories and mythology. By chance, she encounters a djinn, played by Idris Elba, who offers her 3 wishes in exchange for his long-awaited freedom. However, due to her studies, she knows all about cautionary tales of wishes gone wrong. The rest of the film is about the djinn's plight for his freedom, and him recounting fantastical stories of his past in hopes to convince her to make her wishes and grant him freedom. Honestly, it's a mesmerizing story of passion and spectacle. While much of the film happens to be a conversation between Alethea and the Jinn in a rather mundane hotel room, the stories of the Jinn's past are no such thing. They are a visual marvel. I won't go into the details and spoil the fun, but rest assured that these visual feasts alone are worth the entry price. There are some truly wild and creative ideas displayed on the big screen. I also personally connected with the Jinn's life story. It's a tragic, frustrating story filled with passion and disappointment. My favorite part of that narrative arc is centered around this moment.
Beginning to wish we'd never met.
Don't say that!
Yes, those fabled stories of the past are fantastical, but though the hotel room is indeed mundane in comparison, I still felt like these were vital and intriguing parts of the narrative. This is made possible by a stellar performance from both Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba. They have wonderful chemistry on screen through their deep, thought-provoking discussions on life, decisions they made, and their inevitable repercussions. This definitely isn't a movie that is easy to recommend to a lot of people because it's not a film that necessarily provides all the answers to your questions. It's a very introspective experience, with very few immediate rewards apart from the fantastic visual adventure of the Jinn's past, of course. It doesn't help that the story jumps all over the place through time and space. Admittedly, it does make it a bit hard to follow at times. There's also the final act of the film. While there are some questions and themes that it raises that I find fascinating, I think it does somewhat falter and hurt the film's pacing. My biggest gripe with 3,000 Years is that the whole film is about narrative patterns, and some of the most fascinating elements in the film are about Alethea's studies on the art of storytelling. I mean, she did dedicate her entire life to that study. And there are a few scenes that witness academic conferences on that very subject, and I found the talks to be absolutely riveting. However, each time they're cut short for one reason or another, just when my interest was piqued. It really is disappointing to me personally, and I think a slight rebalance could have been made. I don't know that it would necessarily have broken the film's pacing because already half the film is a slow burn introspective discussion. I really would have loved to hear more of that, and perhaps less of the crazy life stories that the Jinn has lived through, however visually tantalizing it may be. Finally, it seemed like the sound mixing was particularly low in this film. I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard two fellas in the crowd make a comment regarding that during the film's credits. So clearly it wasn't just me. And maybe it was the cinema itself that had an issue that day, but somehow I don't think so. So yeah, the movie has its flaws, and I'm sure that many won't appreciate as much as I did. And clearly, not many have been keen to go see this film in the cinema. As of today, the film has a budget of about $60 million, and it made just shy of $12 million. So it's a total box office flop, which is unsurprising in today's times. If you're looking for a deep, introspective type of film with a visionary filmmaker who is willing to take a major risk and try something unique, even if flawed, especially in a landscape of cookie-cutter film patterns where filmmakers are afraid to take risks, then I recommend you give this film a shot. It's not obvious for me to give this film a score, but if held at gunpoint, I feel like this film is a solid 7 out of 10. Even with some of its hiccups, I think this is an intriguing addition to George Miller's filmography, and it provides plenty of ideas to ponder while we wait for the long-awaited Furiosa in 2024. When the film works, it shines. But please let me know what you thought of this movie. It's okay if you completely disagree with me. This is just my opinion. In any case, I hope you have a wonderful day filled with love and passion, and until next time.